Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, so you've done it. You found the place. You've fallen in love with it, maybe. You've crunched all the numbers. You know the neighborhood inside out. And you're ready. Ready to make that offer. But let's face it, finding the dream home, that might actually be the easy part these days. Getting your offer accepted, especially in these, hyper-competitive sellers markets. That's the real fight. You're probably not the only one putting in a bid.
That's absolutely the challenge, and that's what we're diving into today. Our mission isn't just about, offering the most money. Anyone can do that, maybe. It's about crafting an offer that's a complete package, something that considers the financial side, sure, but also the agent dynamics, the psychology of the seller,
Yeah.
all those insider strategies that make your offer the one they just can't refuse.
Right. Giving you that edge.
Exactly. We want you to have that competitive advantage.
And what's really interesting, I think, is how much this relies on, well, psychology. It's not just spreadsheets and interest rates. It reminds me a bit of how people talk about stock markets.
It's a perfect parallel. The economist John Maynard Keynes, he wrote about stock valuation way back, and his insight, it applies so well here. He basically argued that in a fast market, most folks aren't trying to figure out the true, 30-year value of a stock.
Okay, yeah. They're not thinking that far ahead.
No. He said they're largely concerned with foreseeing changes in the conventional basis of valuation a short time ahead of the general public.
So guessing what everyone else is going to think it's worth soon.
Precisely.
Wow.
It's like a beauty contest, where you're not picking the person you find most attractive, but the one you think most other judges will pick. It's about anticipating the crowd psychology in the very near term.
And that maps directly onto a bidding war situation. You've got maybe, 48 hours? A weekend?
Exactly, a super compressed time frame.
In that window, the seller isn't thinking about the 30-year mortgage life. They're thinking about their perception of your offer right now. Is it certain? Is it simple? Does it feel safe?
That psychological weight, that feeling of certainty and reduced risk, that can honestly be more powerful than an extra few $1,000s on the offer price.
So we need to structure this offer to hit those psychological buttons. Reduce their fear, boost their confidence in the deal closing.
That's the core strategy. Mitigate their fear, maximize their certainty.
Okay, let's start with the foundation then. The money. We always hear cash is king in real estate, especially when things get competitive. But maybe we need to unpack that a bit. It's not just having the money, right? It's what it signals.
That's the key distinction, yeah. An all-cash offer just completely removes the bank from the equation for the seller. No financing contingency.
Which means?
Which means the seller doesn't have to worry about the deal falling through because the buyer's loan gets denied, or, critically, because the appraisal comes in low.
Ah, the appraisal risk. That's a big one.
Huge. And because cash buyers eliminate that, they can sometimes pick up properties, especially distressed ones that banks wouldn't touch anyway, for what seems like a competitive price, but might still be, significantly undervalued compared to its potential after repair.
So the cash buyer is essentially buying certainty for the seller.
Yeah.
And that certainty has a real dollar value in the negotiation.
It's incredibly valuable. Think about it from the seller's perspective. They accept an offer with financing, weeks go by, then boom, low appraisal. The buyer can't get the loan or wants to renegotiate. The seller is back to square one. Property's been off the market, maybe looks tainted now.
Nightmare scenario for them.
Exactly. Cash just wipes that fear off the table. And this fits perfectly with certain investment strategies, too.
Like the BRRR method. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. How does cash play into that specifically?
Oh, it's fundamental to BRRR, especially the speed aspect. If you're buying a place that needs serious work, cash lets you close super fast. No waiting winds for bank underwriting and appraisal.
Right, you get the keys quicker.
You get the keys quicker, you start the rehab phase quicker, which means you get it rented quicker, and crucially, you get to the refinance stage quicker. That final R, pulling your capital back out, happens much faster and often at a higher valuation because the property is already fixed up and generating income. Cash just lubricates the entire cycle.
Okay, so speed and certainty are almost like non-cash terms that carry huge weight. But let's be realistic. Most regular home buyers aren't rolling up with suitcases of cash.
True. Very true. So we need to talk about leverage, but using it strategically to look almost as good as cash.
How do we do that?
First, let's just quickly define terms.
Yeah.
Your down payment, say the standard 20% for a conventional loan, that's your equity, your skin in the game.
Okay.
The other 80%, that's debt, usually from a bank.
Right.
Now, the lender's perspective here is critical for your offer strategy.
You mentioned appraisals earlier. Let's say I negotiate what I think is a great deal, $20 K under what I believe market value is. The appraisal confirms I'm right, comes in $20 Ks higher than my purchase price. Does that help me with the bank's loan-to-value calculation? Make my loan look safer?
You'd think so, but frustratingly, no. The bank will almost always base the LTV on the lower the purchase price or the appraised value.
Ah, so they use my $500 K purchase price, not the 520 guy appraisal, for their 80% LTV calculation.
Exactly, they're conservative. Now, keeping that LTV at or below 80% is good, avoids private mortgage insurance, simplifies things, but here's where it gets tricky in hot market.
The appraisal contingency waiver.
Bingo. Sellers love offers without an appraisal contingency. It removes another layer of uncertainty for them, but for the buyer.
It's risky, especially if you're already pushing that 80% LTV.
Massive risk. Let's use your example. $500 K purchase, you put $100 K down 20%, planning to borrow $400 K, 80% LTV.
Yeah.
You waive the appraisal contingency to be competitive. Then the appraisal comes in low, say $480 K. The bank will now only lend 80% of $480 K, which is $384 K.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Suddenly, you don't need $100K for the down payment. You need the original $100 plus the $16,000 difference between the loan amount, $384K, and the remaining purchase price, $400K after your initial $100. You need $116K cash at closing, not $100.
That's a gap you need to have ready liquid cash for.
Precisely. Waiving that contingency is powerful for the seller, but you absolutely must have the reserve funds to cover a potential appraisal gap.
So how can buyers boost their access to that kind of liquid cash quickly to make waiving contingencies feasible or just generally look stronger?
Okay, here's a tool that's often underutilized, especially by investors, but homeowners too. A home equity line of credit, HELOC, or a home equity loan, sometimes called a HALE.
Using the equity in your current home.
Exactly. If you've built up significant equity in your primary residence, you can often open a HELOC pretty quickly and use that line of credit to fund a huge chunk, maybe even all, of the down payment on the next property, the investment.
What's the advantage over, say, selling stocks or pulling from savings?
Couple of things. Speed is one. Getting a HELOC approved can be much faster than certain other financing types. Cost is another. The interest rates are usually relatively low because it's secured by your home. But the strategic advantage, it makes you look incredibly flexible and well capitalized to the seller. You can shorten financing contingencies. You can confidently cover appraisal gaps. You essentially present yourself as someone who has their financial house in order and isn't waiting on complex approvals, almost like a cash buyer's cousin.
That flexibility sounds key.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the financial muscle, maybe via cash, maybe via smart leverage, like a HELOC. Where do we aim this power? Just jump into any bidding war.
You could, but your advantage is maximized when you target specific situations. Motivated sellers, distressed assets, places where your ability to offer speed and certainty is more valuable than maybe the absolute highest price.
Like foreclosures.
Foreclosures are one category, yeah.
Yeah.
But experienced folks usually aren't buying right on the courthouse steps. It's super high risk, no inspections, title issues.
Right.
They're buying before the auction, in pre-foreclosure, negotiating directly with the owner. Or they're buying after the auction from whoever picked it up, maybe the bank or another investor.
And distress isn't always just about money trouble, is it?
Not at all. Situational motivation is often even better intelligence to have. You need your agent or your own research to uncover these things. Did the seller already buy another house and their closing is next week?
Ah, so they need to sell fast.
Exactly. Or they took a job transfer starting Monday in another state, going through a messy divorce, months behind on payments and desperate to avoid foreclosure hitting their credit.
These sellers prioritize closing, probably over squeezing every last penny.
Often, yes. A guaranteed close date, maybe a quick 10-day close if you're using cash or that HELOC, or maybe even offering them a 60-day rent back after closing so they have time to move. These non-price terms can be deal winners. You solve their specific problem.
That brings up another kind of problem, municipal issues, like code violations or city liens. That sounds like a nightmare.
It can be a nightmare for the seller and for inexperienced buyers. Many investors will walk away if they see, say, $50,000 in city liens for code violations or unpaid taxes on a house that's only worth $100,000 as is.
Seems logical. The debt exceeds the value.
But here's the opportunity for a savvy buyer who understands local government. The city doesn't want a blighted, non-tax generating property sitting there. They're actually motivated to see it fixed up.
Why? What's in it for them?
A renovated property means increased tax revenue, it eliminates a neighborhood eyesore, it solves a problem for them. So if you have the know-how, You can go to the city, present a credible plan to renovate the property quickly, and negotiate those liens.
Negotiate them down or even away.
Absolutely. You might get them significantly reduced or potentially waived entirely in exchange for a commitment, sometimes even bonded, to bring the property up to code within a set time frame. You turn a liability that scares everyone else off into a major source of equity. Requires a different kind of negotiation skill, though, dealing with bureaucracy.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to the people involved, specifically the agents. We all know our buyer's agent is supposed to represent us. But let's talk about the seller's agent. How much influence do they really have?
Oh, immense influence. They are the gatekeepers, the filter, the interpreter of all the offers that come in. You have to remember, the seller is usually emotionally attached to their home,
Right.
and they swing back and forth, right? Between greed, I want top dollar, and fear, what if it doesn't sell at all? The selling agent is the one guiding them through that emotional roller coaster.
Right.
And since the agent only gets paid if the deal actually closes.
Their advice often leans towards the offer that looks safest, most likely to close, not necessarily the absolute highest number with shaky terms.
Exactly. It's a fascinating dynamic. Think about, would you ask the car salesman how much you should offer for the car? Probably not.
Yeah.
But sellers often rely heavily on their agent's judgment about which buyer's offer is the strongest and most reliable.
So, understanding that reality, how do we use it to our advantage? How do we get the selling agent on our side subtly?
Well, the most direct and frankly most effective incentive you can offer a selling agent is the possibility of dual agency.
Whoa, okay. Dual agency, where our agent represents both us and the seller. That sounds like a massive conflict of interest. How can they possibly advocate for the best price for me if they're also trying to get the seller the highest price and, crucially, pocketing the entire commission instead of splitting it?
You've hit the nail on the head. It is an inherent conflict, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as a buyer, you have to be incredibly careful if you go this route. You cannot rely on that dual agent for unbiased advice on price or negotiation points that benefit you exclusively.
So why even consider it?
Because in a brutally competitive multiple offer situation, offering the opportunity for dual agency is often the single fastest way to get your offer moved to the very top of the pile. It ensures the agent, the person with the seller's ear, is actively rooting for your offer to be the one accepted because it directly benefits them financially.
Okay, so it's a tactical move to win the initial acceptance, not a strategy for getting the best possible price negotiation after acceptance. You'd need to rely on your own research, comps, inspections for that.
Precisely. It's about getting your foot in the door when 10 other people are banging on it. You gain the agent's political capital with the seller, but you absolutely must understand the compromise you're making and be prepared to advocate for yourself or have independent counsel on the details later. It's a calculated risk to win the bid itself.
Got it. Okay, moving on from the agent's incentives. Let's talk about gathering intelligence on the seller's real motivation. Beyond just the price, we hear about win-win negotiation.
Yeah, the fairy tale version, where everyone openly shares their deepest needs and finds a perfect solution. That rarely happens in high-stakes, zero-sum games like a bidding war.
Oh, so what's the reality?
The reality is that effective negotiation requires digging deeper, understanding the other side's true pressures, their fears, their vulnerabilities. It's less about finding perfect harmony and more about understanding the psychological walls they put up.
And what's the biggest wall, the core fear for a seller in this context?
It boils down to the fear of not sold. Simple as that. As a buyer, your fear is not bought losing out on the house you want. The seller's nightmare is ending up back on the market, time ticking away, maybe prices shifting. The uncertainty.
So a winning offer plays to that fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even if your price isn't the absolute highest, if your terms scream certainty, quick close, no appraisal contingency, maybe that rent back we talked about, solid financing pre-approval, you are directly addressing their biggest anxiety. You're offering them peace of mind, the guarantee of a closed deal. That can be incredibly persuasive.
This ties into something you mentioned earlier, the importance of always countering an offer, even if it seems low.
It's psychologically crucial. When a seller just flat out refuses to engage or counter a low offer, they're often acting out of ego, not logic.
Yeah.
And they're actually increasing their own fear of not sold by shutting down possibilities.
Oh.
Because negotiation, even if the starting points seem miles apart, keeps the dialogue open. It maintains momentum. Each counter, however small, reinforces a kind of psychological commitment to the process. Cialdini called it consistency principle. Once people start down a path, they feel an internal pressure to keep going. Refusing to counter breaks that chain and makes it easier to walk away entirely, often to the seller's detriment, if time is a factor.
Keep them talking, keep the process moving.
Exactly.
Mm.
Coaxing those counters keeps the possibility alive.
And alongside these psychological tactics, there's the simple power of appearing competent and knowledgeable.
Absolutely. Product knowledge is power. Sellers and their agents, they want to deal with someone who knows what you're doing, someone who seems organized, confident, and likely to actually close the deal without drama.
So doing your homework on the property, the comps, the closing process, it's not just for your own benefit.
No, it telegraphs reliability. If you or your agent can speak intelligently about the specifics, ask insightful questions, present a clean, professional offer package, you stand out from the crowd who might just be clicking buttons online without really understanding the transaction.
And maybe the simplest, cheapest strategy of all.
Follow-up. Consistent, persistent, friendly follow-up.
Really? That makes a difference.
It's almost effortless, and it's incredibly effective. Send a quick email, have your agent check in politely. It keeps your offer top of mind. It reinforces that consistency principle again. Even if they accept another offer, things fall apart sometimes. If you've been the pleasant, persistent presence,
You're the first one they call when the other deal collapses.
guaranteed, you want the agent thinking, okay, if this other one doesn't work out, I know that buyer is serious and ready to go. It ensures that, as one sales guru put it, if there was any chance, it was going to be from me.
So building on that idea of professionalism and consistency, if the whole offer package, the communication, the follow-up, it all feels solid and reliable, what's happening psychologically for the seller? What automatic tape are we triggering?
You're triggering the safe bet tape, the low headache tape. You know, humans run on these mental shortcuts, these learned responses. When an offer comes in messy, full of contingencies, maybe the communication is sloppy or delayed. That triggers alarm bells, risk, hassle. But when everything is clean, clear, professional, and backed up by that consistent positive follow-up, it signals reliability, dependability. It mimics the features of a transaction that's likely to go smoothly. And that directly soothes their core fear, the fear of the deal falling apart.
Okay, let's game out a common scenario. Price. The negotiation hits a wall. You're $15,000 apart, say, and the seller just won't budge on the purchase price. What does a really skilled negotiator do next?
They pivot immediately. When the price negotiation stalls, the best negotiators know how to broaden the field. They shift the focus to other items that have real monetary value or significant convenience value, but aren't the headline number.
Like closing costs.
Closing costs are a classic example.
Yeah.
Buyers typically pay for things like title insurance, appraisal fees, loan origination points. It can add up to thousands, easily. If the seller is stuck firm at $600,000, getting them to agree to pay, say, $10,000 of your closing costs, that's functionally identical to you paying $590,000 for the house. It's a $10,000 swing, just achieved differently.
Okay, that's clever. What other non-cash terms can be used to bridge that kind of gap? Let's get really tactical here.
Right. Think about things that transfer risk or offer flexibility. Speed is one we've touched on.
Shorten contingencies.
Exactly. Shortening the financing contingency period from, say, 30 days down to 14 or even 10 days, especially if you have that strong pre-approval or ECLOC backing you up. That's valuable to a seller who wants certainty fast.
And the inspection contingency. We mentioned waiving entirely, which is high risk. What about that middle ground, the information-only inspection?
Right, the inspection for information-only contingency. It means you still hire an inspector, you still do your due diligence, but you contractually agree up front that you won't use the inspection findings to demand repairs or credits or to terminate the deal, unless something truly catastrophic and previously undisclosed pops up, like a collapsing foundation.
So you find out the furnace is old or the roof has maybe 5 years left. You just have to accept that.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
The seller sees this as almost as good as no inspection contingency at all, because it removes the likelihood of nickel and dime renegotiations over minor stuff. For the buyer, it's a calculated risk. You're betting that any unexpected repairs will cost less than losing the house entirely in a bidding war. It's probably best suited for newer homes or properties you feel pretty confident about structurally.
Makes sense. What about timing, helping the seller with their actual move?
Huge potential value there. The lease back or rent back. Let's say the sellers are buying another house, but the closing dates don't line up perfectly. They need to stay in their old house for maybe 2 weeks after you close on it.
Okay.
Offering them a free or very low-cost post-closing leaseback for that period can be a massive relief for them. They get their sale proceeds immediately at closing, giving them certainty, and they get the flexibility to move on their own timeline without being rushed or homeless for a bit. That convenience can easily be worth thousands, in perceived value to them.
More than just bumping the price another $2K maybe.
Often, yeah. Especially if they're stressed about the logistics of the move.
What about the earnest money deposit, the good faith money?
Good leverage point. Standard earnest money might be 1% of the purchase price. To show you're serious, double it, triple it, and critically, make some or all of it go hard quickly.
What does go hard mean?
It means it becomes non-refundable after a certain point, usually after your initial inspection or due diligence period, say 7 or 10 days. So you put down $20,000 earnest money instead of $5,000, and you agree that after day 10, if you walk away for reasons not covered by any remaining contingencies, the seller keeps that $20,000.
Wow, that signals serious commitment. You've got real skin in the game, quickly.
Exactly. It tells the seller you are highly confident you can close and you're willing to put significant money at risk to prove it. That drastically reduces their perceived risk of you backing out.
Okay, let's shift again. Let's say your strong offer gets accepted. Hooray! Then, during that inspection period, if you kept one, you find a real issue. Maybe the HVAC system is shot, needs a $7,000 replacement. How do you handle that negotiation now? You've got the deal, but there's a problem.
This is actually a moment where the buyer often has more leverage than they realize. The seller has already mentally moved on. They've picked you. They've stopped marketing the house. They're probably making plans for their next step. They are psychologically committed to closing.
So they don't want the deal to die now over the HVAC.
Exactly. They typically have 3 choices. 1, fix the HVAC themselves before closing. 2, offer you a credit at closing, usually around the estimated repair cost. 3, refuse and risk you walking away and them having to start all over.
Option 3 seems unlikely if they want to close.
Very unlikely. Most sellers at this point just want the path of least resistance to the closing table. Fixing it themselves can involve hiring contractors, delays. Yeah, it's a hassle they don't want. Offering a credit or agreeing to reduce the purchase price by the $7,000 estimate is often the cleanest, quickest solution for them. You, as the buyer, need to be ready to ask for that professionally and firmly, backed by the inspection report, end quotes.
This whole intricate dance from figuring out motivation to handling inspection issues, it really underscores the human element, doesn't it? The listening, the responding.
Absolutely. It's the ultimate edge over just, algorithms or faceless online platforms. So many people, even some agents, just reply. They hear a request or an objection, and they fire back a standard response.
Yeah.
The best negotiators, the best salespeople, they listen. They try to understand the underlying need, the emotion behind the words, and then they respond thoughtfully to that, not just to the surface statement.
Can you give an example? How does that sound in practice?
Okay, instead of your agent just saying, my buyer demands a 30-day close, which sounds aggressive,
Right.
they could say something like, we understand selling a home you've lived in for years can be stressful, and we really want to make this as smooth as possible for you. Because my buyer has already secured their financing, mentioning the HELOC maybe, we're able to offer a very certain 14-day close to give you peace of mind quickly. We're committed to having your back through this whole process.
Ah, okay. It acknowledges their potential stress, offers a solution framed as a benefit to them, and promises support. It's empathetic.
Exactly. Empathy.
Yeah.
Putting yourself in their shoes even briefly, acknowledging the inherent stress of the situation, that subtle human connection, that commitment to making it easy for them, that can genuinely influence their decision when comparing multiple strong offers. It builds trust.
All right, let's pivot to the property itself, especially for investors, but maybe even for regular buyers thinking long-term. How can you be smart about increasing the value right after you buy without breaking the bank? You mentioned something called the upgrade hack.
Yeah, the upgrade hack principle is pretty simple. It's about being strategic when you already have to replace something anyway. Let's say the countertops are shot or the flooring is completely worn out. You have to spend money replacing them.
Okay, unavoidable cost.
Right. The hack is realizing that sometimes spending just a little bit more, maybe 10, 20% more on that specific item can result in a disproportionately huge increase in perceived quality and value.
Where does that work best? Where do you get the most bang for that marginal buck?
High visibility, relatively small surface area spots. Kitchens and bathrooms are prime candidates. For instance, instead of just basic builder-grade tile for a kitchen backsplash or a small bathroom floor, maybe you splurge on a more unique, higher-end tile.
Yeah.
The actual square footage might be small, so the total material cost difference might only be a few $100s compared to the cheap stuff. But visually, it can make the whole room feel much more luxurious, much more custom. That impacts appraisal value, rent potential, future sale price. Way more than the few hundred extra bucks you spent.
As opposed to putting expensive flooring throughout the entire house where the cost difference would be massive.
Exactly. You focus the splurge where it has the most visual impact per dollar spent.
Smart. Now, what about adding value through structural changes? You hear about adding bedrooms.
That is probably the single most powerful value add from a cost perspective, especially if you're using the BRRR strategy and aiming for a high after repair value, or ARV. The key is converting existing underutilized space into a legal conforming bedroom.
What kind of spaces work best for that?
You want to look for houses that have a bit of an inefficient layout. Specifically, target two-bedroom homes that are maybe over 1,100 or 1,200 square feet. These often have unusually large, formal dining rooms that nobody uses anymore, or big dens, or sometimes even oversized laundry utility rooms.
And what makes a room a legal bedroom for appraisal purposes?
It varies a bit by local code, but the general rules are pretty consistent. It needs a certain minimum square footage, usually a ceiling height minimum. Critically, it needs two forms of egress, typically an interior door for entry-exit, and an exterior window of a certain size and height off the floor for fire escape. It needs a heat source, like a vent from the central HVAC. And crucially for value, it needs a closet.
Just adding a closet makes that much difference?
Huge difference for appraisal and marketability. The actual work might just involve framing one or two new walls with drywall, adding a pre-hung door, and building a simple closet frame. For maybe a few $1,000s in materials and labor, you can take a two-bedroom, one-bath house, 21, and turn it into a three-bedroom, one-bath, 31.
And that third bedroom adds significant value.
Oh, tens of thousands potentially. Because now you're competing in a different market segment. More families need three bedrooms. Your potential renter pool is larger. Your potential buyer pool is larger. It dramatically increases the ARV for that refinance or eventual sale.
Okay, zooming out from the house itself. Location, location, location. We know schools matter.
Immensely. Always try to buy in the best school district you can possibly afford. The premium people pay for access to good schools is real, and it tends to hold up better even when the overall market softens.
Beyond just looking at current school ratings, is there deeper intelligence to gather?
Definitely. Pay attention to local news, city planning meetings. Are they planning to build a new, state-of-the-art school nearby? Are they considering redistricting in a way that might bring your target neighborhood into a better district? Are major transit projects planned that will improve commutes? These future changes aren't fully priced into the market yet, but they can signal significant long-term appreciation.
And then there's zoning. That sounds kind of dry, but you're saying understanding it is key.
It's fundamental to understanding the long-term potential and limitations of a property. The vast majority of residential land in the U.S. is zoned for very low density, primarily single-family detached homes on their own lots. Think about the classic American suburb.
Right, that's the default image.
That structure is largely thanks to something called Euclidean zoning, which separates land uses. Residential here, commercial there, industrial way over there. It's been the standard for about a century.
How does knowing that history help me make a better offer today?
Because that century-old standard is starting to change in many places. Cities are grappling with housing shortages and affordability crises. So they're looking at loosening those strict single-family zoning rules, especially near transit or in established neighborhoods.
You mean allowing more density, like duplexes or...
Exactly. Things like accessory dwelling units, ADUs. Think granny flats or basement apartments are being legalized in many areas where they were previously banned. Some cities are even allowing homeowners to convert large single-family homes into duplexes or triplexes, or build duplexes on lots previously zoned only for one house.
Ah, so if I'm buying a property today, I should research not just the current zoning, but potential future zoning changes.
Yes. Buying a large single-family home on a decent-sized lot in an area where the city council is actively discussing upzoning or allowing ADUs, that property might have hidden development potential that isn't obvious today but could dramatically increase its value down the road if those changes pass. That's zoning intelligence giving you an edge.
Okay, last piece. Presenting the asset. This is more for sellers, but buyers, especially flippers, need to understand it. Staging. Why is it so important?
It's about maximizing appeal to the broadest possible audience. When you sell, you need to get the you out of the house, meaning remove all the personal stuff. Family photos, quirky collections, highly specific paint colors, overflowing closets, all of that needs to go. You need to create enough mental and physical space for potential buyers to walk in and immediately start picturing their life, their furniture, their dreams in that space. not yours.
Make it a blank canvas, essentially.
A well-staged blank canvas. Because the other key function of staging is helping people visualize. Most buyers, honestly, are not good at spatial reasoning. They can't walk into an empty room and accurately picture how their sofa will fit, or where a dining table could go, or how the traffic flow would work.
They need help seeing the potential.
Exactly. Staging provides that visual guide. It defines the purpose of each room, shows appropriate furniture scale, creates a sense of flow and possibility. Interestingly, if the staging feels a little bland or generic to the seller, that's often a sign it's working perfectly, because it means it's appealing to the widest common denominator, not just their specific taste.
Wow, okay. That was definitely a deep dive. We've covered a lot from structuring your finances with things like ELO ECs to look almost like cash,
Mm.
to the strategic importance of understanding and maybe even incentivizing the seller's agent,
Hmm.
to all those negotiation pivots using non-cash terms like closing costs, contingencies, leasebacks, earnest money, and always, always countering. It really drives home that winning an offer, especially a competitive one, isn't just luck or throwing money around. It's serious preparation and strategic positioning. It's about managing the seller's risk perception.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And making that leap, implementing these kinds of strategies consistently.
Yeah.
It often requires more than just learning the tactics. It requires a shift in mindset.
How so?
Well, the biggest reason people fail to stick with new, maybe challenging habits isn't because the habits are inherently impossible. It's because their own self-image gets in the way. They don't see themselves as the kind of person who negotiates hard or manages complex financing or deals with city bureaucracy.
So progress means changing how you see yourself.
Yes. It requires continuously editing your beliefs about what you're capable of, upgrading your identity from just being a home buyer to being perhaps a strategic acquisition expert. Even if you're just buying for yourself, this isn't a one-time trick. It's about building a new, more rigorous set of habits.
That feels like a pretty fundamental shift.
It is. And the only way to really know if those new habits, that new approach, are actually working, you need discipline, you need measurement, you need accountability.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah. Think about this. In any really competitive field, real estate, financial markets, even aspects of your career, there are always things that seem just out of reach. That amazing deal that looks too complicated, that negotiation that feels impossible. But progress rarely happens without rigorous, almost unsympathetic measurement. You have to track what you're doing and what results you're getting. Measurement is, well, it's cold and unsympathetic, as one writer put it. It doesn't care about your excuses or how hard you tried. It just reflects reality.
So the final question for you is, how can you apply that kind of cold, hard measurement to your own search for a property or a deal? Are you tracking your lead sources, your offer conversion rates? Which negotiation tactics actually yielded results? Without that data, without that unsympathetic measurement, how do you really know if you're making progress or just spinning your wheels? How can you ensure you're focusing your energy on the actions that truly lead to success?